all oaths sworn, all of the newly elected people sworn in. You attest to the fact that that swearing-in ceremony has occurred. All people are present to take offices. Thank you. Ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Godwin,
Here.
Howdy Shell,
Here.
Rogers,
Here.
Schmidt,
Here.
Stogler,
Here.
Whitaker,
Here.
Wright.
Here.
Let's all please stand for the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, may be seated. Thank you. Well, welcome to 2020. Isn't it amazing how fast the time goes? Approval of the minutes. You all should have received copies of the December, what was that, 16th and 17th?
17, 17.
Those two, and then we had the special meeting in order to pass some legislation prior to the end of the year. You received copies of those. Any additions or corrections? Seeing none, they will stand approved as presented. Approval of the agenda. At this particular point, I have nothing to add or delete from the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Motion by Mr. Schmidt to approve the agenda as presented. Discussion? Call the roll.
Godwin,
Yes.
Howdy Shell,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Stogler,
Yes.
Whitaker, Wright.
Yes.
Down, take one and pass it on down. I think we have enough for the administration as well. Should have 10.
Need more. Or two more.
Here, I got an extra.
Okay.
Any extra copies down there? You had enough?
Yep.
Okay. These are the policies, procedures, and rules for the 2021 terms. We operate on a 2-year basis. People are elected to positions for 4 years in a staggering term. So every 2 years, we reorganize the council. And I'd like to take a moment to welcome also our newly elected law director, Mr. Mike Greenville. Welcome.
Thank you.
And our newly elected 4th Ward council member, Stogler. Welcome, sir. I think there was only one small change, and it was a typographical error in some of the language on one of the particular pages. Pardon?
I think you passed those out too.
We passed those out, yeah. Give you an idea of the tenure list here.
Yeah, I got a whole stack of those. I didn't get one of those.
You didn't get a,
I got all these.
Oh.
What you've got in your hand.
oh,
I just passed them
messed
back
it
that
up.
way.
Here,
Thanks.
there's another one here, and another one.
He's got it.
There you go, Mike.
Did you get one, Mr. Whitaker? Policies?
No, I just did, no.
Okay,
Yeah,
That's that.
and, I
there you go, Mike.
dug too deep in the pile.
Now I need
Got too
one of
many
those.
pages. There you go.
One thing. That's in your list.
If there are no additions, corrections, questions to the adoption of the council rules for the 2021 term, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion, Mrs. Howdishaw, to approve the policies, procedures, and rules for the 2021 term for Greenville City Council. Discussion. Call the roll, please.
Godwin,
Yes.
Howdy Shell,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Stogler,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes,
Wright.
Yes.
And the last page of that is, of course, the adoption, which will be signed by me as council president, and Jessica as the clerk of council. So it is officially adopted as of this date, January 7th. You have a copy? Okay, here, you go ahead and sign that one. Here. That will be the official copy. All right, next we have the task of electing a president pro tem. The president pro tem serves in either the absence of myself as chair, or if perhaps the mayor is out of town, legally I have to step down as president of council and assume the chair, or assume the mayor's position. That is by statute, the Ohio Revised Code. And at that time, the president pro tem takes over as chairman of the meeting. The president pro tem can make motions and also votes on all matters, even though they're serving as president pro tem. So I have Mr. Whitaker, Mr. Wright, and Mr. Schmidt all indicated that their interest in becoming president pro tem. So what we do is we pass a ballot and we have an election. So if you would. Write one name, please, only on the ballot and pass it back to the clerk. Mr. Whitaker, Mr. Wright, and Mr. Schmidt. Huh? Mr. Schmidt has been elected as chairman, or excuse me, president pro tem. Do you accept that position, Mr. Schmidt?
I sure do.
Okay, thank you. Now, the next thing we do is seating assignments. Our seating assignments are based on seniority. And basically, it's your choice. So whoever is the most senior gets to choose. And I don't mean to be rough on Mr. Stogler, but
think we're gonna
normally the
switch.
president pro tem sits next to the chairman. And when we get all finished, let's see, where's our tenure? Did I give you the tenure list? Or did I bring it? There we go. Of course, Mr. Schmidt, you were the first to choose, but you'll be here. Mr. Rogers,
I'm going to stay where I'm at,
you're
please.
gonna stay where you're at.
Maybe I ought to move.
Must have been out of y'all's dismay.
Maybe I need to move.
You want him back in the other room? Okay. First ward. Clarence, you're the next, I think, to choose where you would like to sit.
Comfy where I'm at.
Okay. Mrs. Howdishell?
I'm staying right here beside Leon.
Okay. Mr. Whitaker?
I'm gonna stay right where I'm at.
Mr. Wright?
Staying right here.
Okay. That pretty much settles it.
Wait, a couple of chairs there, we're
You
done.
two change spots and we're good to go. Hey, that was easy. I do appreciate, way back when the
I got your back.
city building was first constructed.
Oh, yeah.
I understand
You can have it, I don't like it.
a bit of history. I understand that the early council meetings were kind of set around a table. And the chairman kind of sat at the head of the table, and all the other council members sat around the table. And if there were any members in the audience, a number of council members would have their backs to the audience. And so in their infinite wisdom of creating this council chamber, they made it so that we all face the public, and no one has their back to anyone, and I think that was a wise decision. So we'll move on. Committee structure. Okay. Earlier in the, before council members took office or remained on council, I asked them to choose what committees they like to serve on. We have 7 committees, 7 council members. So each council member is the chairman of one committee, the vice chairman of another committee, and the member of a third committee. So they all have assignments. Now this is kind of like a Chinese chess match, because when you start shifting people around, it creates holes, and you have to plug it in with someplace else, and it gets really interesting. But we had of course, some previous council people on in different spots. We need 3 down there. And for, again, we'll send these off to.
Thank you.
Let's have 1 for the, 2 for the, down there, and here's for the safety service director in there.
Need one more here.
And we might have a couple extra if the press wants any after council, they can get those. There are times when issues come up to council that we need to consider, and sometimes an ad hoc committee is formed, which will be something completely different than any of these committees here. Sometimes it might consist of the chair of 3 different committees, forming an ad hoc committee regarding whatever issue it is that we need to deal with. We have also on occasion used individual assignments. And of course, I just want to reiterate that any committee meeting, once a question is assigned to the committee, any committee meeting must be advertised, must be in a location available to the public. You must take notes, and those notes must be posted, presented to the clerk of council at the conclusion of the meeting, and kept in perpetuity for any future reference. The committee, the individual council committees are 3-member committees. That does not constitute a majority of council, so they make committee reports to council for council's consideration. If a member of the committee, 3 members on the committee, if a member of the committee, either the chair, vice chair, or member, does not agree with the other 2, a minority report can be filed as well, and that minority report and majority report will be both considered by this council at that particular time. So that's kind of the structure that we go by. And of course, if something happens that a member of the committee may have a distinct conflict on an issue, we make some arrangements for that as well. So that's the committee structure. I appreciate everyone's willing. I hope you all understand, particularly the general public, that this council, I think, works very, very well together. And we help each other, and they do an excellent job. So I appreciate everyone's effort. Now, we are also saddled with the task of having representatives to various groups and organizations within the community, particularly groups that we supply some funds through either our community funds or other forms of money to help support that group. And we've asked that members of the council, sometimes two, sometimes one member of the council, serves on those committees. And if you recall, council, I had asked you that at the end of the last term, in December, that we would start putting a council, maybe under new business, if you serve on the Community Improvement Corporation, for example, maybe the first meeting in February under new business might be communication from the Community Improvement Corporation members. And I would ask at that point that you give an update, the next meeting or two meetings or whatever down the road. It might be from the Community Action Partnership Board. And I would ask the people to bring council up to date as to, what's happening and what's going on, and keep us informed. So that will be in the offing for the 2020 and 2021 years. The first thing that we have to do is to elect two members to the Community Improvement Corporation, or better known as the CIC, which is the city CIC. I don't know if constituents are aware that we have two community improvement corporations. One's the Dark County CIC. And the mayor, you serve on that, don't you?
Yes.
Dark County CIC. But we have the Greenville Community Improvement Corporation. We have two members serving on that. We have three people who had indicated an interest in serving on that. Last year, or the last two-year term, was Mr. Godwin and Mr. Hensley, and of course, Mr. Hensley is off council now. But Mr. Godwin, Mr. Stogler, and Mr. Wright are the three people who indicated an interest in serving on that committee. So, at this particular point, we're going to need some ballots. And if you will, choose two of the three, Mr. Godwin, Mr. Stogler, and Mr. Wright. This is going to be complicated. I have to keep a good tally here.
Godwin and Wright.
Mr. Godwin and Mr. Wright? Okay. Mr. Godwin, Mr. Wright, you accept that position?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The Community Action Partnership, or CAP Board. Last session, it was Mrs. Howdeshell, and no one has indicated an interest in that board. So do I have a volunteer, or any, that is the information presented to me by the members of council? Do you recall how often that board meets?
Not too often.
Not
I
too
don't
often.
remember exactly, but not too often.
Is it a daytime meeting, an evening meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll stay on it.
Pardon?
I'll stay on it.
Is anyone else
Unless
interested in
anybody else wants it.
Community Action Partnership? Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Schmidt to appoint Mrs. Howdeshell as the member to the Community Action Partnership Board. Call the roll, please.
Godwin,
Yes.
Howdy Shell,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Stogler, Whitaker,
Yes.
Wright.
Yes.
Okay. Next, we have the Council on Aging Board. I'm not going to comment any further on that. Mrs. Howdishell, you served on that before, and you've indicated an interest in doing so again.
Sure.
You want to do that? Will you do that?
Yes, sir.
Move to nominate Dory Onajo.
Okay.
I figure that's appropriate for me.
Pardon?
I figure that's appropriate for me.
I wasn't going to. There. That would be stricken from the record. Call the roll.
Godwin,
Yes.
Howdy Shell,
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Schmidt.
Yes.
Stogler.
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Wright.
Yes.
Okay, next we have the Main Street Greenville Board. Last year, it was Mr. Whitaker, and Mr. Whitaker and Mr. Wright have both indicated that they are interested in serving on that board. Okay, pass the ballot. The air conditioner.
Whitaker.
Mr. Whitaker, you accept that position?
Yes, sir.
Elected by the board, okay. And next, we have the Dark County Visitors Bureau Board. We only need one member for that. It had been Mr. Whitaker before, but no one had signed up for it. They're indicated to me in their flyer that they were interested, so is it?
I'll say. I'll do it.
I nominate Jeff.
You nominate Joe. Okay.
No.
We have a nomination for Mr. Whitaker. Call the roll, please. Call the roll on this one.
Godwin,
Yes.
Howdy Shell,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Stogler.
Abstention.
That's granted. He is on the Dark County Visitors Bureau
Okay.
Board.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Wright.
Yes.
All right. And Architectural Review Board. Mr. Stogler and Mr. Whitaker both indicated that they are interested in that position.
I'll withdraw.
Mr. Stogler withdraws his name from the Architectural Review Board. Mr. Whitaker, you're the only one indicating. Would you accept that?
Yes, sir.
Nominate Mr. Whitaker.
Mr. Rogers moves Mr. Whitaker be appointed. Discussion, call the roll, please.
Godwin,
Yes.
Howdy Shell,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Stogler,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Wright.
Yes.
Okay. And finally, we have the Volunteer Firefighters Dependent Fund Board. Requires 2 members of council. Last year, it was Mr. Godwin and Mrs. Howdishell. This year, Mrs. Howdishell, Mr. Rogers, and Mr. Stogler had indicated an interest in that.
I'll withdraw.
Withdraw that. So that leaves Mrs. Howdishell and Mr. Rogers to fill the 2 spots. Would someone move to accept them?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Whitaker to accept Mrs. Howdishaw and Mr. Rogers to serve on the Volunteer Firefighters Dependent Fund Board. Call the roll, please.
Godwin,
Yes.
Howdishaw,
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Stogler,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Wright.
Yes.
Okay, wow. That concludes all the committees and we have to do here. I thank you all for stepping up. We have on this sheet the Greenville Union Cemetery Board. We don't really fill those positions until the first part of May. And it's kind of interesting because we do it in May and then they don't take office until the following January. So, Mr. Rogers, you're serving currently on the
Yes.
board, aren't you?
Yes.
Right, on the Union Cemetery Board, along with 2 township trustees.
Township trustees, yes.
Okay, good to know. Anything further, any questions from members of council? All right, we will move the agenda and open it up for public hearings. Anyone wishing to address council may do so at this time. Please come to the microphone, state your name and address, and whatever it is you need to share with council.
Steve Chase and Ruby Horner, Mrs. Chase,
What's
We're-
your address, sir?
Bell Fountain, Ohio, 1534 Cross Point Circle, Bell Fountain. We're acquiring a property here in Greenville, and it burned down. We are looking to rebuild it. So we will need to hook into the sewer system. And we're looking for your guidance and approval to do that.
Where is the property located?
It's 5236 County Home Road, out by the sheriff's office.
Okay,
So past procedure has been that committee assignment would be made to the utility committee. The utility committee would hear what the petitioner has to say, would provide them with some conditions of hookup, and then make a recommendation back to this body with a recommendation to either approve, disapprove, and what stipulations if they were to approve that.
okay, so our utilities committee is Mr. Godwin is chairman, Mr. Wright is vice chair, and member Mr. Stogler. So thus we have our first committee assignment for the year. I don't know what your timeline is, sir, but we will ask that this be returned to council no later than the last meeting in February. And as always, any committee assignment that is given to any committee with a due date, if you have the information and can prepare a report prior to that, it will be accepted by this council even before the due date. So please keep that in mind. But I will have at least the last meeting in February, which will be the 18th, no later than the 18th of February. Okay?
Thank you.
Mhm. And Mr. Godwin, I ask that you work through Mr. Garrison to,
That guy.
that guy over there. Mr. Garrison. I'm sorry. It's warm in here, my brain's not right. To get any further information and contact these folks when the committee meeting.
Right.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry.
I was concerned you were pointing at me. It's outside my league. Good evening. Roger Van Frank, Director of the Dark County Park District, 4267 State Route 502, Greenville, Ohio. Thank you for your time. I come tonight before council to ask for a change in zoning on a new piece of property that has been gifted to the Dark County Park District by Elaine Holzapfel. It will be named the Holzapfel Preserve. We've actually had a portion of this property for a year. We're just about going through our final stages to be able to make sure that the zoning is correct for it. I've worked with the mayor and your city service director, Kurt, for that guy. Yeah, that guy over there. To get the final paperwork. It has been submitted to go to, I believe there's more than one reading. Am I correct on that for zoning?
We'll go to the Planning and Zoning Board, and then it'll come to...
Come back to, okay. And I believe that planning and zoning meeting is in the latter part of January, so I will make plans to attend there. But I come tonight to ask council not only for that. This is a 2.33 acre piece of property that lies directly behind the high school. The purpose behind it when Elaine gave it to us was to maintain it as a preserve. Underneath her name, the Holzapfel Preserve. You could take a walk back there now. I encourage you to do it. It's a nice area. I believe that we're going to make it a lot better. We're currently working with the high school and the science clubs that are there. Mark Jackson and Mike Koenig are the instructors for that. They're working with their groups to bring them into the area. We'll be going through things such as pollinator fields. They're going to do inventories. They're going to take a look and help us to do cleanup. There's one section of the property that's got an awful lot of yard waste in it. We're going to clean it up, make it look nicer. Over the next year, you'll see some changes coming in. But we ask for that zoning change to take it from residential to a special use. And the special use fits for the Park District better than that. The other request that I have of council is to waive the zoning fee of $155. So that will help the Park District with our budgeting, even though we have a decent sized budget, but still every nickel counts for us. And I appreciate your time, and I'll be glad to answer questions. And if any of you want to take a walk out to the Holzapfel Preserve, don't hesitate to call me. We'll do that and take a cup of coffee with us. There are some very unique species. Elaine has put several $1,000s into it. There's probably well over 75 to 80 species of trees already there. So it has a lot of appeal. And again, the education process for the school groups will be great. We've already had our first 2 or 3 encounters with the science clubs coming out, and I think it will be a very successful opportunity for us. And that's the biggest reason my board accepted it, was the educational. And Judge Aislinger also looked at it with that same aspect, because any piece of property we accept has to go across his desk and his approval also. And that's all I have for tonight, and I appreciate your time. And I also wanted to thank council. I think the bike trails are doing great. We're excited to see the people on them, and I appreciate it. So thanks once again for all your help.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ben Frank. Appreciate your time. Do we need to assign that to the committee?
Let's make a decision.
Pardon?
Well, as far as the zoning change, that'll come back to
That'll
this
come
committee
back
as a
to us through
recommendation from
zoning and planning.
Yeah.
Right, so we don't
But
need-
more, I think expediently, he is asking for the forgiveness or the waiver of the fees for his permit application, so that, or not permit, but his request for zoning change is heard by the Planning and Zoning Board, a fee of $155. So whether that's done through legislation or a simple majority vote, I guess.
It would have
Question of
to,
the law director.
would that have to have some legislation to it?
I think typically it does. I mean, I think we can, if you want to confirm it with a vote now, and then we can always follow back up with
At the
legislation.
next meeting.
Yeah.
It is another governmental entity that we're dealing with, and so you be aware of that. And, I don't know what council's concern or questions. You have anything for Mr. Van Frank or any?
You just need a motion then.
Right.
Motion to waive the fee of the $155.
Motion by Mr. Rogers to waive the fee for the Dark County Park District for the rezoning fee. Discussion. And that is to prepare the necessary legislation.
Yes,
I thought that was in your motion.
it sure was.
Thank you.
I heard him.
Call the roll, please.
Godwin,
Yes.
Howdy Shell,
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Stogler,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Wright.
Yes.
Anyone else wishing to address council? Seeing no one, we will move the agenda. Administrative reports. Happy New Year, Mr. Mayor.
Happy New Year to you too. That was on my first thing on my list. Happy New Year to everybody, and thanks for coming, everybody. So congratulations to Mr. Reeman and Mr. Stogler for joining our group and serving the city. So appreciate it. I don't know if anybody else got any email, but I did from the Ohio Ethics Commission. So don't forget, maybe check, make sure that you're not one that will need to fill out the forms and pay the fees to the state. So it's like $35, I think, if you're already a candidate, or you probably had it on your list to talk about, but I know I got it, so I thought I'd just share it.
I got her too.
Yep. Okay, one other thing, I want to make sure that everybody realizes that a longtime member of our park board will have his last meeting this coming Thursday, which is Dale Musser. He was appointed by Mike Bowers, and even long before that. He served some time and then came back, and one of the main things that Mike asked of him was to make sure that the band shell had come to completion. And it's there. There's a couple little odds and ends that will still need to be fixed up. Mike JR will probably do that. But if you guys see him out and around, I think that I don't think we'll see him in any committee meetings anymore. He was on planning and zoning as the president of the park board. And he already said he wasn't going to make that meeting. So I thought maybe he might be around in 2 weeks before our council meeting, but may not be the case. So if you see him, congratulate him, thank you for his service, and I certainly do. So he's been a big help to us in the park, so I wish to thank him. So with that, I pass.
Okay. Thank you. Safety Service Director, that guy, Mr. Garrison.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Welcome, new members. As we get started in the new year, we have a lot of exciting things going on and exciting topics to discuss. One is a follow-up to 2019 is the North Broadway project. I still get a lot of questions, and I'm sure your constituents may ask you, where's the streetlights on the North Broadway project? I promise they are coming. The order has been placed. Miami Valley Lighting is anticipating an install sometime in the month of March. So if you are asked about that, you can give them that answer. At the next meeting, we'll have a letter of recommendation from the administration and various department heads within the city that would make the recommendation that this body, through legislation, would accept the YOLO Park as a park for the city of Greenville. That project has been completed. The punch list items have been completed. We know that the major components of the park are up and running and have been installed satisfactory. So we will present that letter to you, or I will present it to the law director, and we'll be able to prepare that legislation. We talk about exciting projects for 2020. We have been informally, and I say informally because until the state budget is passed at the beginning of July of 2020, we will not receive formal approval, but we have received preliminary approval that the grant, the Ohio Public Works grant that we applied for in 2019 for a 2020 project has been funded to the level of $800,000. And that project is in 2 phases. This is phase 1 of phase 2, or I'm sorry, phase 1 of 2 phases, to reconstruct using the same means of FDR, or full depth reclamation, that we used on South Ohio. We would do this to the North Ohio portion, and that would go from the traffic light on Martin Street probably down to the VFW. And to go along with what Mr. Van Frank talked about this evening, that will get our bike path all the way down to Bish Park, and we'll get that completed inside the city of Greenville as we do at least a 10-foot path on the west side of the street. And we've made some modifications to the project because of cost. We will be doing share the road from the traffic signal all the way across the bridge, and then get folks onto a separate bike path and down to Bish Park and then through the rest of the city. So that's a major project that's coming up. There were no decisions in 2019 regarding the sidewalk issue, the replacement of deteriorated sidewalks. Would like to resurrect that discussion and make a decision on whether or not we are going to proceed with the assessment process. There's some other projects as well I won't go into this evening. Those are probably the two biggest at this point. My question to council is, would you like me to go into detail at a future council meeting on these projects? And I would suspect that the level of discussion could take an hour or more. Or would you like to have a special meeting, a work session, where we can meet and can go over some preliminary plans and discuss various options on how we move forward in 2020?
Special meeting.
I say a special work session.
Okay. In the process of doing, we have not closed out 2019 from a financial standpoint, and we do not have discussions about our CIP requests until the budget until the 2019 has been closed out and we know what the carryover is, and we can have discussions on the various projects that have been submitted by the department heads. I would think that in talking with the deputy auditor, we hope to have the year closed out by the middle of the month. So I would suggest that we could have that meeting maybe the second Tuesday in February. Sometime in February. Generally, our work sessions are on the off weeks of council meetings, so.
That would put it about the 11th. So that's up to members of council if you would like to set something in
February.
February and say 7 o'clock versus 7:30 or 6:30,
Would
you know,
six or
whichever would be.
6:30?
7.
6:30?
7? 7 works better?
That give you enough time, Leon? Yeah. 7?
7 o'clock on the 11th.
So this would be a committee of the whole or a work session?
Right.
Okay.
11th.
7 PM. Okay. Set.
Thank you. And then the last thing I'll close with, just to let council know that we are with new law director, kind of bringing him up to speed on some past nuisance abatement cases, and then also have a discussion on how we want the process to look like in moving forward with 2020. So the fire chief, assistant fire chief, myself, the mayor, law director, will sit down on Friday and have that conversation. So really excited as we move forward. So with that, I will pass.
Before you go, the project of, say, North Ohio Street from Martin to past the bridge to about the VFW, does that, it's a reclamation like you did on South Ohio, but does that include curbs, gutters, and sidewalks, going to a 3-lane, that
Yes.
proposal like we had
Yes.
shared before?
Yes.
Okay. Then the phase 2 would be from there back to 4th?
Somewhere. It's all about money and being able to get funding. So we're going to have to chip away at it. The road is, and as we look at infrastructure projects and streets that, you know, need reconstructed versus just repaving, Ohio Street is at the time, based on ADT, average daily travel, based upon the condition of the roadway. At the same time, you have some infrastructure issues with storm drainage because there were no curbs. So there's not a whole lot of storm drainage already in the ground. So we have storm drainage issues. Obviously, no curb and sidewalk currently, so elevations of sidewalks and just the cost of the sidewalks and curb to go in. One of the reasons why we switched to the FDR process, because one, it's more timely, and two, it's less costly. So hopefully we can maximize our dollars in doing that.
All right. Thank you. Law Director, Mr. Reamer.
Thank you,
Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Mr. President. I want to start off, I guess, first and foremost by thanking everybody with the city. They've been incredibly accommodating to me so far and welcoming. I've got an office downstairs, so hopefully you'll be able to find me here. I am posted up there generally on Tuesdays and Fridays, so feel free to stop by if anybody has any questions. And I am certainly looking forward to working with the city and for the city going forward. I think I can certainly feel myself the progress that the city's made, and I'm excited and hopeful we can continue down that path going forward. I do just want to speak very briefly tonight. The one ordinance that you are voting for is an ordinance that affects me and helps appoint my assistant law director. Asking you and recommending that Mr. Chance Cox, gets reappointed to that position. He served in that previously. In that position, he handles the majority of the criminal cases for me, which is a timely and time-consuming job, working very closely with the police department. That amount of money for his salary is what he previously had been approved at, and it's already been appropriated for in the budget. So with that, I will pass.
Okay, thank you, sir. City Auditor, Mrs. Wellman.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Obviously, it's already come to your attention that the Ohio Ethics Commission, maybe you all received that email, but I just wanted to let everybody know that the financial disclosure statements are available. They can be filed online. It's a very simple process. Anyone who's required to file it is anyone who served in a position for any amount of time in 2019 or 2020, anyone appointed or promoted to a filing position in 2020, and anyone who is a candidate for state, county, or city elected in 2020. I would say everyone here needs to file. With the exception of Mr. Stogler, do you have to?
I got the email, yep.
Okay, okay.
Because sometimes newly elected people have to file earlier.
Right, I think within 2 weeks of the time that they get sworn in. For the rest of it's May 15th of 2020, so.
And what's the filing deadline for the rest of us? Like
May 15th.
May 15th? Okay,
So just wanted to let everybody know. And with that, I pass.
okay, thank you. We have no committee reports. We have one ordinance to consider this evening. Ordinance providing for the appointment of Assistant Law Director effective January 1, 2020.
An ordinance providing for the appointment of an Assistant Director of Law effective January 1st, 2020.
Move to suspend the rules,
Wait a
give
minute,
this.
got to read the summary.
Sorry.
This resolution by ordinance number 19142 allows the Director of Law to compensate at the rate of $52,000 per year Chance Cox for providing the services of Assistant Law Director effective January 1st, 2020.
Move to suspend the rules and give this second and third reading by title only.
Motion by Mr. Rogers to suspend the rules, read the resolution by title second and third time, the ordinance by title second and third time. Discussion. Call the roll, please.
Godwin,
Yes.
Howdy Shell,
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Stogler,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Wright.
Yes.
An ordinance providing for the appointment of an Assistant Director of Law effective January 1st, 2020. An ordinance providing for the appointment of an Assistant Director of Law effective January 1st, 2020.
Move to adopt?
Motion by Mr. Whitaker to adopt the ordinance. Discussion. Call the roll, please.
Godwin,
Yes.
Howdy Shell,
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Stogler,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Wright.
Yes.
And nothing under old business. Under new business, we have established a handicap parking at 217 East 5th Street. You have a letter?
Yes, we do. Dear Clerk, please advise the members of council pursuant to section 452.125, the Safety Service Director and I have established a handicap parking space in front of the residence at 217th East 5th Street, Greenville, Ohio. Respectfully, Chief Strick.
Okay, there's that. Wow. So we just, you're apprised of that, we don't act on it one way or the other, you're just apprised of that handicap spot. Okay. Any communications?
We received the monthly reports of December from Income Tax and Fire Department.
Okay. Any other communications? If there are none, call down the council, please.
Godwin,
Just like to welcome new member Matt and Mr. Reeman. And thank you, people, for coming tonight. And Happy New Year to everybody. I'll pass.
Howdy Shell,
Welcome to the new people that have joined us. And Happy New Year, everyone, and have a safe year. And with that, I pass.
Rogers,
Yes, I too would like to welcome the new members to our city council and law director. And hopefully we can have a good working relationship. With that, I pass.
Schmidt,
Matt, Mike, welcome aboard. Looking forward to working with you guys. We'll have a good relationship, and I will pass.
Stogler,
Thank you all for the welcome. I just want to note that this weekend I was made aware that our good friend Keith Fouts had a heart attack, and I think he's back home now. Is that right, Ryan? So our best wishes to Keith for a fast recovery. So with that, I will yield back.
Whitaker,
Yeah, I want to wish Keith fast healing and recovery. Happy New Year to everybody, and I look forward to working again with Matt and Mike. Matt, want to congratulate you on your new position with Small Nation.
Thank you.
And I'm sure that's a good move for you.
I'm looking forward to it.
Congratulations, and with that, I pass.
Wright,
I also would like to welcome Matt and Mike to the City of Greenville Legislative Body. North Broadway, no parking signs as you go northbound. Are they going to be replaced?
Yes.
I hope.
Yes.
That's all I got. I'll pass.
President Burkett,
Well, wow, it's 2020 and another year is rolling on. And we got through that very well. I'd like to personally thank all the council members for your cooperation in making all of these committees work. It does help a lot. Sometimes it's a little bit more expedient to work via the committee level. One other thing that I failed to mention earlier, I did receive or have received some communications from our sister city in Germany, Grünstadt. For those of you who don't know, and myself included, don't know a lot of German. Grün, G-R-U-N, with the umlaut over the U, is green, and Stadt, S-T-A-D-T, is city. So Grünstadt is Green City, and we are Greenville. And we received an email from Michael Kopitz, who is with BASF. I thought he was retiring, but then I guess he talked him into coming back and staying a while. And he's back in this Grünstadt, the town, and a member of their council. Now, their city council in Grünstadt has 29 members.
Wow.
And they have, I don't know, 7 or 8 different parties that are represented. But the interesting thing about Grünstadt is that there are 2 little satellite towns, if you will, kind of butting up against Grünstadt. and they kind of figure in the city government as well. And that's Sausenheim and Osselheim, I think it is. But anyway, Michael has emailed me wanting to kind of see if we can revive our sister city relationship a little bit. Way back years ago, when the airfares began to skyrocket, no pun intended, but they did, we, both organizations, Grunstadt and City of Greenville, kind of curtailed our visitation back and forth. But he is interested in trying to get some communications going again. I also received a communication from Hans-Peter Tallis and his wife Gudrun. They're a couple that my wife and I happened to stay with when we were there. And then we in turn hosted them when they came to Greenville. They're lovely people. It's very interesting. He had missed Hans-Peter had missed some flight connections or something, and he landed in Newark. And he called me and he says, "Can you come and pick us up? How far is Newark from Greenville?" Well, in Germany, you know, you drive 3 or 4 hours and you're out of the country. You drive 3 or 4 hours and you're not even out of Ohio yet. So it's a little bit different for them to comprehend, but we made some connection, had some good times, and they're great people. So if any of you are thinking about it, usually they have a festival the end of July. It's called the Wine Fest. It's a good event to go to, let me tell you. Right, Leon?
Yes.
But the people of, and we equally try to treat them as well when they come here. They've been here for the Dark County Fair. They've been here for other events as well, so it's really good. So in the back of your mind, kind of keep it that maybe if you and your spouse, now the city does not pay anything as far as airfare or travel expenses or anything. That's pretty much on your own. But once, I can guarantee you, once you get to Grunstadt, if you want to buy a souvenir, you kind of have to sneak off to do it. Because if they find you with it in your hand, they take it and they go pay for it, and then they give it to you. So, but they're wonderful people, and we've always had a very, very great time there, and they too coming here. So I'm not going to make a committee assignment as such. That's one that we'll kind of keep as an individual assignment. Therefore, we don't have to worry about setting a committee meeting and taking the notes, and we kind of keep communications back and forth. And as time moves on, I will keep council apprised of where we might be on that. So that's all I have at this time. So I would entertain a motion to
So move.
adjourn. Motion by Mrs. Howdyshell to adjourn. Call the roll, please.
Godwin,
Yes.
Howdyshell,
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Schmidt.
Yes.
Stogler.
Yes.
Whitaker.
Yes.
Wright.
Yes.
Thank you and good night.